And where do we draw that line? Because like eating some stuffs, eating some food and some sort of food types affect or hurt the sentiment of other communities. And it's a big concern because when Nagas or let's say the tribal from northeastern states go to Delhi, they will cook some stinky foods, which the people of northeastern states love. But there would be a hue and cry from the neighborhood. So as a politician, as a leader of this nation, where do we draw the line on what the freedom of eating what you want to eat, at the same time respecting the sentiments of other people?
No, I think you can respect my respecting your sentiments means I don't force you to eat something you don't want to eat.
Right.
I can't tell you that if you're going to come to my home, you will only be served something that you don't eat. Just as when I go to a Naga home, I'm given vegetarian food because they don't want to give me meat that I will be unwilling to eat. By the same logic, we should do this. I remember writing an article which you can Google in The Week magazine a few years ago. There was a very interesting incident when the Iranian president was on an official visit to Paris. And at the official lunch, the French served the Iranian delegation their food, and because the Iranians don't drink alcohol, there was a fruit juice or something for them. But the French themselves had, as they usually do, wine with their meal. And the Iranians protested and walked out, saying this was an insult to Iran when wine was served at the table where they were eating. Now that, to my mind, is intolerance on the Iranians' part. No one is forcing them to drink that wine. You see what I'm saying?
I got it.
But how can, just as the French cannot oblige the Iranians to have wine, the Iranians cannot oblige the French not to have wine? That's the kind of principle that I believe. So just as I will not eat your dogs or your cows, I'm not going to tell you not to eat it because that's your culture. You're brought up enjoying that taste. By all means, go ahead and do it.
Right. But we have seen. Take your time. We have seen a number of cases, like you have correctly mentioned, where especially the Muslims, number of people were lynched on the road for possessing a piece of meat. And what concerns me as a youngster is, don't we have a constitution that can protect us from this kind of mistreatment based on what we eat and based on what you drink or how you want to behave without hurting anyone? But why can't our constitution protect us from this?
First of all, I must tell you that I'm not a youngster, but I share your concern totally. You're right. And I think it's outrageous that under the Constitution of India, people are doing this kind of thing. The important thing is, you can't prevent people from behaving in an outrageous way, even committing murders and lynchings. But you can stop it by acting responsibly against it. What is shocking is that in many states, the BJP-ruled states have proved reluctant to proceed against these so-called cow vigilantes who are taking the law into their own hands. Yes, some of these states have outlawed the transportation and consumption of beef. Some of the North Indian states and Central Indian states have passed such laws. My state hasn't, your state hasn't, but those states have. And therefore, technically, if somebody really has beef, they are in violation of the law. But the whole point about the rule of law is that if there is a law and somebody is breaking it, you can proceed against them according to the law. You can arrest them, you can prosecute them, you can charge them, whatever it may be. You cannot take the law into your own hands and murder somebody on the streets. That is simply illegal by any definition, and allowing that to happen is actually not, as the Home Minister shockingly said, teaching them a lesson. It is in fact betraying the fundamental lessons of our Constitution, which is that our system exists to have laws that apply equally to all. So if you don't like something somebody is doing, you can actually collect the evidence and report them to the police if it's against the law. You have no right to stop them, beat them up on the road, filming the beating up and watch the person die in front of you, all of which have happened in these lynching incidents in recent years. So all I can say is that we need to raise our voices, and we need to frankly also use our ballots to change, to remove people from power who are not willing to uphold these principles of the Constitution.
Thank you for that. I think it really creates doubts in our mind on the system, because what we are supposed to do as per the social contract theory, the government is supposed to protect us, and we are supposed to obey the Constitution. And when we have that mutual responsibility towards each other, there is order in the society. But regardless of the existence of this both, we can see that many citizens are not protected enough, that their safety and safeguard is not guaranteed. So that's something that is concerning to us.
Right, but at the same time, I would agree that we shouldn't exaggerate how bad this is. I think that thanks to a vigilant media and NGOs and liberals, we know about pretty much all the major cases of lynching that have happened. And in a country of 1.4 billion people, if we know about a dozen such incidents in the last 8 years, that's bad, but it's not the end of the world. It means that other cases have not occurred. But by publicizing this, we have only gone half the distance. We now need to prosecute and punish those who've done this. But when you find in Gujarat that, forget a beef lynching, a woman who was raped, her child was murdered, and all these horrible things happened, the perpetrators are given, who are sentenced to life, are given bail in just less than 11 years of imprisonment, and are happily home and being celebrated by their friends in the ruling party. There's something deeply wrong with that. And I think that we have to find out, we have to find ways of ensuring that some of these things are never allowed to happen again, because they remain a major blot on our conscience. I'm referring to the Bilkis Banu case and the case of Gujarat.
Right.
But there are all these other cases, these cases of Pehlu Khan, who was beaten to death practically for transporting cows. And what is more, he was not doing them for beef. He was a dairy farmer with a license to transport cows. But he had the misfortune of being a Muslim in the wrong place at the wrong time with cows in his truck, and he got beaten to death. Or that young man who went home to get married and was tied to a tree and beaten to his death until he said Jai Shri Ram, and even then he, poor fellow, died. I mean, these kinds of things are criminal acts. There is no excuse or justification. Everyone involved has to be given exemplary punishment by our judicial system, or the respect for the rule of law will disappear.